If you're watching this, then that means you're a weeb. 5 episodes in and the season still holds that title as one of the best in recent memory. And I'm saying this without even including the sequel anime, which would just further accentuate what I already said about the season. Anyway, enough with the intro, I don't want to waste too much time here, so let's start discussing this week. Shubi bluffing about having an exterminus grade weapon to force Sky to retreat is as expected of his intelligence if you ask me. Not a lot has happened in this episode, and at best, the episode further puts Shubi's allegiance to Grand Edger. With Back Arrow not winning against Sky in the Brightheit duel, I thought it felt just right, or I would have called bollocks if he actually won through sheer plot armor. Now that Grand Edger has made an enemy in Rekka, it's only a matter of time before wave after wave after wave of enemies will swarm them. As for Luto, while we already know they wanted the Dreadnought gone in previous episodes, it is still unclear what their final stance will be with the Grand Edger situation. And that's my biggest question mark for now, 5 episodes in. Who would have thought that last week's badly paced post-credit scene would actually be the focal point for this week's episode? The fact that we had to spend an entire episode's worth of content just to resolve an issue as petty as getting suspended because some idiot's cousin didn't explain it sooner rather than later, I feel the entire episode could have been done better regarding that issue. Sidetracking and moving on to other important bits of info that we got this episode, I have to agree with Kuroba that most of Hajima's former teammates are shameful plebs. The mere reality that they actually went that far just because they couldn't handle Hajima's hustle is the peak of athletic mediocrity. And I, for one, am glad that we got closure with Hajima's past. The other notable info drops are the sensei, who Hajima has a crush on, who is, by the way, a cultured choice if you ask me, and that Seiin's coach is actually famous. I'm trying to wrap my head around it, but I can't help but think he might be similar to the head coach from Slam Dunk, in the sense that he looks like a comedic character but is actually competent and more. Because of that info dump regarding the team's coach, I can't wait to see him work for real, because at this point, he might be the one that would make this entire show from decent to great. Multiple plot points. That's basically my overall reaction for this episode. So, we have a new Harry member in Philo, we have Lloyd securing Riho's position as a permanent Harry member as seen here, a love triangle between Lloyd, Mari, and some angsty senpai, and a tournament arc. Speaking of the tournament arc, a prize of one Excalibur ripoff that Lloyd casually obtained is looking to be a major plot point for the next episode given what we've seen from the participants' reaction to it. With the dark-skinned dude appearing again, which I actually forgot his name so I'm just referring to his skin color, and to the angsty senpai of all people, should I expect a rowdy episode 6 once I get to see it? I'm not sure, but given that a lot of events that happen here would obviously play a role next episode, then the signs are pointing to a reluctant yes. I'm so disappointed with this episode. I didn't even know that the episode already ended until about 10 seconds into the ED. When I caught on the ending song, I immediately checked the episode, and when I saw that it's actually already over, I felt immensely disappointed. This episode went by way too fast, probably the fastest the show has ever done. One moment we're watching our girls having a victory party from last episode's venture, then the US military is everywhere. Did they find oil on the other side? I mean, to be that armed, you gotta wonder why they're here. And yes, I'm still skeptical even after hearing the lieutenant's narrative on how they got here. We got 2 interesting monsters today, with the horned man looking like a centaur that lost his ass. But design-wise, it still looks really cool. And because I luckily remembered it, the waiter mentioning the arrival of the abordment during the first act of the episode is definitely the link here between our couple getting trapped and the US military's unexpected appearance. My gut feel says the abordment's made of oil, but because there isn't much info we can get here, I'm back to waiting another week of Otherside Picnic, which kinda sucks. Our boy gets a waifu, and the petitions for a time skip arc might start coming in sooner rather than later. It was already hinted in the previous episodes of a possible romance between Kabane and Kon, but it turns out that our boy is speedrunning the waifu game. He might be a relative of Nasakun for all we know, and I would actually gladly accept that as canon if ever. Waifu talks aside, the mere sight of Mihai's name at the box at the very start of the episode got me thinking. He's a vampire, isn't he? And a few scenes later, I was right. All thanks to tall vampire lady for educating me that Romanian names have a high likelihood of being a vampire. Name etymologies aside, Mihai is a good addition to our cast of misfits and works really well as a foil to Inugami-san. With the end of the episode revealing that Shiki has an undisclosed trauma, let's start placing bets on what it is, and my bet is that his mommy died to a mosquito kemono. So yeah, thanks for tuning in for Kemono Jihen Episode 5. While I can't do the whistling sound that the homies do when they see a pretty lady, I gotta say, Adelheid is one of the better looking waifus this season. She kinda reminds me of Krush Karsten from ReZero, because the stoic but beautiful warrior type of waifu, she fits that description. As for today's plot point, I must admit, at first I thought the chameleon invasion was a brain-dead play by Rugis, until it was revealed he's actually playing 4D chess and is employing a textbook example of divide and conquer. So good for him. The entire battle was decently animated, so I have no complaints there. And to answer Alfred's question on who's the enemy here, the ecclesiastical order is admirably trying so hard to get Alfred Senpai to notice them as the real baddies. Then again, it might be a red herring, so let's wait until more of the world's lore is given to us. In this episode of National Geographic Australian Wildlife Edition, it has been finally revealed that this show is both a Yojo Senki and Maho Shoujo Madoka Magica reference all along. With Kumiko's evolution being a done deal, our best spider got a plethora of new skills. As many and as exciting as they were, I was actually hoping that she'll talk about the egg-laying skill. Like, that's gotta be your ticket to world domination. Imagine an army of Kumiko's babies ready to fight for the ruler of Pride. That is a plot point that I wanna see before the show ends. I mean, the OP and ED songs have already hinted that she won't be alone, so it should be a matter of time before she makes good use of it. On the subject of the middle stratum, Kumiko, for all her hard work, has finally paid off with some juicy catfish meat. I've never tasted catfish in real life, so if there's anyone out there who has tasted it, I would like to ask if it is as good as Kumiko makes it out to be. And I almost forgot. We need to thank the anime studio for including a commercial for an upcoming generic isekai. Wait a minute. Wait. What? Those human scenes are part of the story? What the fuck? At this point, being Irie is suffering. You lost your girl to a doll, and now the same doll changed her appearance to someone dear to you, and then tricked you into falling from a flight of stairs, causing injuries that might not bode well in the future. Another thing that is slowly swelling up is that Seria is on the brink of madness. The symptoms are there, and if there's anything we can speculate from the preview for next week, her descent might spiral down even further. with reveals like that douche guy planning to take Alice and Alice causing somewhat unintended reactions from the audience during their theater run, the story might take a dark turn quite soon. One more thing, but I actually find it a bit disappointing that for a theatrical idol show, their weakest link is actually the performances themselves, and I really couldn't get to invest myself whenever they perform. Like, it's always presented into excerpts with no coherence from one another. With that said, I might start judging this show based on the narrative side instead and just give up on hoping that the performances will get any better. But a small part of my brain still wants to believe, so I'm not sure anymore. Sakura being told to leave the group and then form a new group, they had us in the first half, not gonna lie. Then again, the card that I played last week where this is a test of her leadership is still up in the air. And if the first episode has told us anything, this split group decision won't last forever. With Rei finally joining and a surprising comeback from Haruka, this is it folks. Our 10-member girl group has finally been assembled in just 5 episodes. Not as fast as Nijigasaki, but hey, for a brand new IP, it's all good. Rei's initial brutality during practice, while not intended, it reminded me of 16. For those who don't know, 16 is a Korean idol survival show with the winners eventually forming one of the biggest idol groups in the world today, which is Twice. In 16, the practices there are brutal and sometimes even worse. And Idoly Pride being able to show that, even if it's just a bit, is a nice touch to remind us viewers that being an idol isn't just a mere project that you can jump into or an activity where it's all sunshine and rainbows. With Sakura's group ending this episode on a high, a smiling Chisa is a blessed sight and should be protected at all costs. This may be a weird take, but I'll say it now so I won't have to in the future. But is it just me, or the fingernails of the girls in this anime look really sexy? Okay, maybe sexy is not the word that I'm looking for, but it really does look very feminine, which is an unusual detail that I don't really notice in other anime. But for this show, it's something I simply couldn't ignore. With that out of the way, last week's victory seems to be cut short real fast with this episode. He's still consistently gaining XP, which is good, but he definitely took a lot of L's in this episode. It's nice to know that Mizusawa has declared his allegiance to Tomozaki, and while Mizusawa wiped the floor with Tomozaki for the majority of the shopping trip, in hindsight, our boy needed that L if he is to surpass his limits and be greater than ever. One more thing, I definitely like the part where our boy got triggered about making a convincing suggestion even if it's not genuine. He's really stubborn with the whole genuine archetype, which is as expected of Hachiman's son. This episode is comedy gold. The race between Adam and Langa had me laughing the entire time given how absurd it played out. I never felt worried about Langa throughout the entire race as I know he has some snowboarding plot armor up his sleeve. But when Beethoven's Fifth Symphony started slapping in after that failed love hug by Adam, I can't help but laugh at the ridiculousness of the current state of the race. With the race cut short because the cops are such spoilsports, a new plot point emerges in the form of who tipped the cops about our skateboard racing anime. With Langa now being called Eve, I can feel the yaoi tension rising as the show progresses. A theory, if I may. Given how Dio has multiple children spread across multiple anime, I believe it is possible that Adam is actually Dio's son, which makes total sense as Adam has inherited a lot of Dio's personality and mannerisms. But hey, it's just a theory. An anime theory. A feast! A feast for the gods! I don't know what's more hilarious. The fact that the R anime subreddit made an appearance in this anime, or the fact that this harem is dangerously self-aware and is actually treating this entire situation as if it's a normal thing to do. This disgusting harem has cemented itself as one of the top tier harems I've seen in a long while, and the best thing about it, it only gets worse from here on out. Nostalgia, my boy, when will you guys freak? Seeing as your harem continuously grows without limit, I find it difficult to believe that you haven't freaked any one of them. Or are you not sharing the experience to us, your audience? Don't be such a party pooper and make the homies proud of you. In this episode of the most wholesome harem romance of our generation, we got plenty of lovemaking to enjoy in here. A threesome in your typical scenic anime river setting, and the new member of the harem getting it in the sheets. I honestly don't get why this show is so controversial. I mean, look at it. It's wholesome. There's absolutely nothing wrong here, and I fail to see why people who watch Redo of Healer are viewed in a bad light. If you know someone who wants a good old-fashioned, wholesome harem, recommend this to them, and if they somehow didn't like it, then tell them that it's okay. While not everyone has the acquired taste for something as wholesome as this, we can safely bet that in a few months, the majority of the anime community will accept this. And for us OG viewers of this labor of love, stand proud, my brothers. There is no shame in watching this show. Best of my girl. Unlimited. Gainax pose! With my cringe quote out of the way, my first impression of Aries is quite similar to Rudy's, but I'll say mine's more specific. She's definitely a redhead Isaka Taiga from Toradora, you know. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but what happened here is that Rudy hatched a plan involving a fake kidnapping with the intention of teaching Aries. But the kidnappers unfortunately actually had a grievance with Aries, hence the entire plan spiraled out of control. I mean, in hindsight, I think this entire Tutor My Taiga arc is beneficial to everyone involved. Sylvie gets to grow more independently, Rudy gets to realize more of what's at stake in this new world, and Aries gets her much-awaited entry, who I assume will be the third waifu for Rudy after Roxy and Sylvie. With nothing else of note other than Aries recognizing Rudy as her tutor at the end of this ordeal, I have to admit before I end this segment, as lecherous as Paul is, he actually made a good decision regarding Rudy, and while that doesn't absolve his sins against my hot mama best mama, it's the least he can do for now. Okay, ladies and gents, we have 4 pieces to look at in this episode. The first piece is when Sota saw Miyamura with Shindo's girlfriend. I already knew how it was going to play out, and as predictable as it was done perfectly. The way the misunderstanding occurred and how they reconciled was a beautiful sight. The second piece is that I asked a question 2 weeks ago on how long it would take for our lovable but violent main couple to get the show up and running. And finally, the answer to that couldn't be shown any better. The third piece of this episode is Hori's father, Kyosuke. He's already in the lead for Father of the Year. I mean, it should have been you, Paul. It should have been you, but you screwed it up. And I actually had a good number of laughs in Kyosuke's segment alone. So I'll be expecting to see more of Best Dad from now on. The final set piece is Ishikawa and Sakura, and boy, we need you two to stop push beating and just get on with it. I don't want to wait for another 5 episodes like what we did for Hori and Miyamura, but if we're getting the slow burn with you two, please, please make it hot, steamy, and spicy, because you two are definitely the couple that could pull that off effortlessly. Okay, let's establish some facts here. Rika is best girl, Nehru is playing extreme gun gale online, Momo is confirmed to be Sawaki Sensei's niece, and I is still such a sweet cinnamon roll. What I really love about this episode is how lived in the anime feels. You don't just get to see a character talk, but you also get to see other characters doing other things simultaneously, even if the focus is on a certain character. This is a somewhat rare detail in most anime, as your standard fare usually has characters waiting for the one who is talking before they say their lines. Another thing that I love about this episode is how Rika is basically us, the viewers, who also pitched her theories on what happened between Koito and Sawaki Sensei, much to Momo's displeasure. And to her defense, it's her uncle they're trying to smear here. With a few more details regarding Koito and Sawaki Sensei, I'm starting to think that Sawaki Sensei might be onto Ai from the start. But Koito got in the way and her jealousy could have driven her to commit suicide. Then again, this is still theory crafting, so until we get an actual juicy episode, nothing's set in stone yet regarding the truth about Koito's death. So that's it for the 5th week of our weekly anime. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video, and leave a comment down below if you have something to share or if you have any questions to ask. I hope you have a good time wherever you are, stay safe, and see you guys next time.